There is a former town in Western Australia that is the centre of an environmental catastrophe. It is the site of the largest contaminated area in the Southern Hemisphere, and it has been abandoned due to the high contamination of blue asbestos. Some people have labelled this town the Chernobyl of Australia, but for the miners of the 1950s, it was home. This is the story of Wittenoom, but it goes beyond that. We will look at the fascinating continent-to-continent collision that occurred which metamorphosed the rocks to form the blue asbestos that was mined. As much as this is a story about the town and the deadly mineral that was mined, it is also a story about the geological construction of Australia, as it was the collision between the Yilgarn and Pilbara cratons 2 billion years ago that formed these deposits, along with major mountain ranges that reached several kilometres high in their heyday. Asbestos, a regular building material, is deadly because of its microscopic fibres. If you breathe them in, they get stuck in your lungs and start a chronic inflammatory cycle that ends in asbestosis, where your lungs are irreparably scarred and make breathing progressively harder, often developing into chronic respiratory failure and death. Exposure to asbestos causes tumours to develop because airborne asbestos fibres can enter lung cells, even if the asbestos dust itself is inhaled in small amounts. The risk of developing lung cancer from asbestos is higher than the risk of developing asbestosis. The town of Wittenoom was established in the Pilbara region of Western Australia in the late 1930s. It is perched high, isolated and spectacular, set amid the ancient red rocks of the Hemisphere range, which are rich in geological marvels and mineral wealth. The creation of Wittenoom, as well as its development, was based on the discovery of crocidolite, also known as blue asbestos. It was chosen for its fireproof and strong qualities. The mining of this valuable mineral would lay the groundwork for Wittenoom's economy. But before we cover the town and the ensuing tragedy that occurred, let's first look at the fascinating continent-to-continent collision that occurred 2 billion years ago, which formed the Western Australia we know today. The history of Wittenoom's blue asbestos spans more than 2.5 billion years, dating from the late Archean to the early Proterozoic. Within the Pilbara region of Western Australia, an area known as the Hemisphere Basin was once dominated by an ancient ocean. It includes the Wittenoom site, and it hosts ancient marine history, a time when iron-rich sediments were deposited and formed extensive and valuable banded iron formations. These are layers of iron oxides and chert, which is a silica-rich rock, that was deposited from an active and largely oxygen-poor early Earth. Banded iron formations are among the purest sources of iron due to their high iron content and relatively low levels of impurities. Their formation in ancient oceans and subsequent geological history have made them a critical resource for modern industry, providing the raw material necessary for steel production and other iron-based products. Over millions of years, the mineral-rich sediments buried deeply in the Earth's crust were metamorphosed, meaning they were changed in structure by heat and pressure. Percolating through the sediments were hydrothermal fluids, mineral-rich solutions, which also brought about chemical changes in the long-buried minerals. With some sodium and a good measure of iron present, this reaction created crocidolite, blue asbestos. Its fibrous blue appearance was indeed rare and beautiful. This blue asbestos is hosted within what is known as the Wittenoom Formation to geologists. It consists of thinly bedded dolomite and dolomitic shale, minor black chert, shale, sandstone, and of course, banded iron formations. Between 2000 and 1800 million years ago, the two major cratons that form Western Australia collided in a dramatic way. The Yilgarn and Pilbara cratons, once separated by vast distances, started moving towards each other. Several stages of deformation, metamorphism, and magmatic activity occurred over a prolonged period during the Proterozoic eon. The Hemisphere Basin was thrust up to become the Hemisphere Range. Today it is highly eroded, but when it was formed, it would have stood several kilometres tall, with a geological setting similar to the modern-day Himalayan mountains. The Capricorn orogeny, as it is known, was responsible for depositing the mineral-rich hydrothermal fluids and for creating the metamorphic conditions necessary to transform banded iron formations into crocidolite. Not all the banded iron formations were subjected to the same extent or nature of hydrothermal activity, limiting the widespread formation of crocidolite. The mineralogical composition of banded iron formations varies, and not all of them have the same composition or structural properties that would allow for the transformation into crocidolite. As a side note, if you're enjoying this video, please click the like button to help YouTube recommend it to others. Consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon to be notified of when we upload. We also have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel, only if you have the means of course, and you can find that both in the description and in a pinned comment down below. By the 1930s, prospectors discovered extremely rich deposits of blue asbestos in the then relatively isolated Pilbara. At the same time, a growing global demand for asbestos was emerging, as the products proliferated in construction, insulation, and industrial applications. The remarkable discoveries of the period intrigued Lang Hancock, one of the pioneering prospectors in the area, and he laid the ground for the beginnings of mining here. The town of Wittenoom formally opened in 1943, and the 3 mines employing more than 1,000 people were producing nearly 150,000 tonnes of crocidolite per month by 1958. Labourers and their families flocked to the most remote corner of that huge country, drawn from all over Australia and even overseas by the mine's promise of jobs and wealth. The Australian Blue Asbestos Company mined large amounts of crocidolite. At its peak, Wittenoom housed more than 20,000 people. Its infrastructure boasted schools, shops, sporting clubs, a hotel and a swimming pool. Typical for an Australian town, it also had a strong shopping downtown. The entire place was a site dominated by the asbestos mines, with most residents working either in them or around them. Conditions were harsh and the work was hard and dangerous. Miners blasted crocidolite from the earth, bounded it to remove impurities, and separated it into fibres in machines that created a fine dust, which workers breathed in. The crocidolite was highly fibrous, and the minute fibres that lodged in the lungs turned out to be a major cause of some serious respiratory conditions such as asbestosis and mesothelioma. At the time, medical authorities didn't yet know that asbestos caused this. As time went by and mining operations continued, the toll of asbestos exposure became clear. The first cases of asbestosis, a chronic lung disease due to exposure to asbestos fibres, emerged among the workers and residents of Wittenoom in the 1950s. Mesotheliomas, a rare but highly aggressive cancer caused by asbestos exposure, also began to appear. These diseases, which can lie dormant for decades, effectively sentenced thousands of Wittenoom's residents to an eventual premature death. Despite the clear evidence of dangers to health, the mines functioned without interruption. It was only in the 1960s that the true implications of asbestos exposure were clearly recognised, by which point the die had long been cast, not only for the many exposed individuals, but also for the industrial site that was increasingly contaminated. Eventually, in 1966, following intensifying health issues and a drop in profitability, the Australian Blue Asbestos Company shut down the mine at Wittenoom. The town fell rapidly into decline. Pensioners, new arrivals, auxiliary workers, many of those who had kept the township going left for safer climates, looking for more opportunities elsewhere. The state government moved to close the town and contain the contamination. And by the 1970s, Wittenoom was virtually a ghost town. The roads became dirt tracks, inhabited wreckage built up in derelict houses. The government decided to try to decontaminate, but asbestos debris had been carried so far and wide that it was impossible to assume anything where it once lay or where it could have been shifted. Many of the buildings had been razed to the ground, while warning notices were put up saying "Danger, do not enter." Today, Wittenoom is by most definitions a dead place. Many former residents have suffered and continue to suffer from asbestos-related disease. Wittenoom today is a ghost town, a legacy of the hazards of asbestos mining. The town remains a dangerous Superfund site. Roadblocks forbid entry, and the mallee scrub grows over the evaporating drainage ponds, asserting its original rights. In order to stop the negative associations with Wittenoom, the government erased it from the official map of Australia and discontinued public services. Wittenoom was officially written out of the official list of lived places in Australia. The Australian government has provided compensation to some families affected by the asbestos disaster in Wittenoom. Various legal actions and settlements have been pursued over the years, leading to financial compensation for victims and their families. However, many have argued that the compensation and support were insufficient given the scale of the health crisis. Former residents and miners from Wittenoom have shared harrowing testimonials about the devastating impact of asbestos exposure. One resident recalls how asbestos tailings were used throughout the town, unaware of the lethal consequences. The workers, including children, were exposed to the dangerous fibres daily. In a recent article, one person, a former resident of Wittenoom, was interviewed. This person's nephew tragically died of mesothelioma at just 37 years old. There's a picture of young children playing in the asbestos on one of the articles I read, with them literally covered in the blue asbestos fibres, which is beyond tragic. Many residents have since succumbed to asbestos-related diseases, and gatherings are held to remember those lost to this industrial disaster. The story of Wittenoom is a powerful reminder of the human and environmental impacts of industrial extraction. Its creation and demise are a warning about what can happen when short-term economic goals are privileged over health and human safety. With that being said, the dangers of asbestos weren't known when this town started its life. For Wittenoom, it is a story of boom and bust, the bright future tainted by the emergence of a legacy of disease. What now remains of Australia's once proud industry is a case study in industrial progress, and a cautionary tale. The story of asbestos mining in Wittenoom is a lesson for all of us, irrespective of where we are, to be careful with the resources that determine our existence. Today, many are urging the government to clean up the area, but that is something that would be almost impossible to do considering how widespread the contamination is and how wind can readily carry asbestos fibres over long distances. Asbestos fibres are light and can become airborne easily, making them capable of travelling far from their original source. So whilst this story is ultimately a tragic one, it is a fascinating glimpse into the geological construction of Australia, which ultimately deposited this dangerous mineral into the bedrock. Wittenoom will never be the same though, unfortunately, and neither will the thousands of families that were affected by this tragedy. Thanks for watching. Are you interested in animals? I've just started a second channel called Paleozoology that discusses extinct and extant animals with a current focus on the megafauna that once dominated and roamed Australia. I've released a video on the marsupial lion which existed in Australia during the time Indigenous Australians walked the continent. I've also covered the wombat that was the size of a car, known as the Diprotodon, or the largest terrestrial lizard known as the Megalania. I'd love to have you along for the journey as more videos are released. You can find a link to this channel and to the aforementioned videos in the description and in the pinned comment in the comment section. Before I end this video, I'd like to give a big shout out to my Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you so much to everyone that helps to support this channel.